My name is Matt Sliger, and I'm a pastor at Southwoods Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee, and I also serve as an adjunct Greek instructor for Bethlehem College and Seminary's extension here in Memphis. And what I want to do in this video is show how those two roles work together, how my continued study of the Greek language has actually strengthened my primary role as a preaching pastor. Now, I know that I'm attempting to convince an already busy person that the first step of teaching the Bible should be a slow step. It should be a step that most of your hearers won't or shouldn't notice, and it's intrinsically a steep step. That's the nature of Greek exegesis. And, to compound the difficulty of convincing you to take this step, it's as if a shortcut is always sitting on the corner of your desk in the form of your English translation of the Bible. It's sort of like if you're on a hike, and the moment that your knees begin to bark on this long trail, a gassed up 4x4 pulls up beside you and promises a smooth, comfortable ride to the peak. Nonetheless, the goal of this brief video remains. If you've been taught the Greek language, you should read the Greek New Testament before you teach the English one. And if you haven't been taught the language, you should learn it for the 4 reasons I'll detail. And you'll see that each of these reasons build upon one another. First, Greek often forces a closer reading of the text. Now, before I'm accused of describing our English translations as unclear, let me clearly state that you do not need to know Greek in order to understand the scriptures. Maybe you say, well, if that's true, why not skip this steep step of Greek exegesis altogether? Well, it's not that the English translation is unclear. It's that instead to put forward the possibility that the English language might be too familiar, meaning that familiarity or ease with reading a language might mean that we gloss over or we miss something. If exegesis is a walk, it's more akin to a hike up a steep trail than it is some suburban stroll on a sidewalk. On a hike, what's the difference? Well, we have to look before each step so that we don't slip. Now, because no one I know can skim Greek, looking at the language itself, just the practice of doing so, often minimizes the temptation to skip over that grammatical nuance that God inspired. Greek forces a closer reading of the text. Secondly, that closer reading of the Greek text can and often does facilitate understanding. Now, to repeat myself, the clarity of the English translation absolutely leads toward understanding. In fact, we would say multiple various means, diagramming, arcing, memorizing, can accomplish the same end, forcing this closer reading of the text. But Greek exegesis functions as yet another option. It's a slow, methodical, and sometimes challenging trail to the beauty of the summit, namely understanding that which God's revealed about himself. Third, that kind of understanding facilitates treasuring the text personally. What I mean by that is an emphasis on reading and translating from the Greek actually lessens our dependence upon secondhand interpretation from commentaries or other books. So, to return to the trail, on a hike, beholding the grandeur of an overlook personally far surpasses the most well-worded description of another's experience. Our view exceeds anyone else's review. As one example, Mount Mansfield in Vermont attracts thousands of hikers each year, not merely because it's the tallest peak in Vermont, but because nearly half the trail lies above the tree line, meaning that long before the summit, for miles and miles of this trail, you can see for miles across Lake Champlain to see the New York Adirondacks. It's really on that trail. It's vista following vista after vista. Now, I doubt that I've actually convinced you in that brief explanation to treasure Mount Mansfield or that trail. You'd have to see it for yourself. So whether one contends that Greek adds a degree of color to the text or a certain depth of dimension, the original language does indeed sketch more fully the perspective of the author. And if that's true, well, those preparing to teach would do well not to deprive themselves of the joy of beholding the vistas, seeing with their own eyes that which God has revealed, in order that they might treasure the text themselves. Which leads to the final point. Treasuring the text facilitates teaching it. Treasuring the text is actually prerequisite to teaching it. To paraphrase someone I once heard, they said that preaching is treasuring the scriptures in front of people. And that order is vital. Treasuring precedes teaching. Treasuring comes first. And so, therefore, whatever means it takes, whatever means one uses in preparing to teach, the steps in the process should serve that end. Delight in God's revelation. Because for the preacher or the teacher, it's not merely the peak they seek. You ascend to arrive, yes, but the ski lift or the Jeep won't accomplish all that the trail will. The slow and steep work of reading the original language, it stirs affections for truth in the text. It facilitates feeling the emphasis of the text. It enables deep meditation upon it, and it lifts clouds so that vistas throughout the text might be seen. A mentor who spent decades translating from the New Testament told me that he wasn't sure that he could prepare a sermon without translating from the Greek text. I think I could. I'm just not sure I'd ever want to. So translate, treasure,